All right, welcome to the Berrien County On-Site Sewage Appeal Board meeting. We welcome you all, and since this is a Zoom meeting and per the county board requirements, we need to begin by identifying our name and our location. So, and whom we're representing. So I'm going to start. I'm Peg Coring. I chair the Board of Health, and I am physically in Chickaming Township. So Commissioner Scott, would you like to go next?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Scott, live on Zoom from New Buffalo Township.
All right. And Dr. Gleiber. I need to unmute, please.
Wayne Gleiber, member of the Sewage Appeals Board, and I'm in Chickaming Township.
So I'd like to have the people who are in the Berrien County Health Department boardroom there identify themselves in your position, please.
I am Nick Margaritis with the Berrien County Health Department. I'm the manager for the Environmental Health Division, and we're in Benton Harbor.
Laird Wood from the Environmental Health Division in Benton Harbor.
Brian Murphy, EA Supervisor in Benton Harbor.
Drew Dean, Environmental Health Division, Sanitary, Benton Harbor.
We couldn't hear you. Could you just use your diaphragm there and project your voice?
Sure, this is Drew Dean in the EH Division in Benton Harbor.
You're going to have to come closer to the microphone, please.
This is Drew Dean in the EH Division in Benton Harbor.
Thank you, Drew. Sorry to be trouble there. Okay, I think we have 3 people on the phone or who are coming to this sewage appeal meeting. Mr. Hemingway, will you unmute and introduce yourself?
Tom Hemingway. I'm in Palm Springs, California, and I'm sorry, and and I'm wanting to buy this property.
Okay. Dan Versaw, would you introduce yourself and tell us where you are?
Dan Versaw, excuse me. Dan Versaw, Versa Earthworks, representing Mr. Hemingway in the appeal. I'm in Glen Township.
Okay. Mr. Pongelic. You need to unmute, Mr. Pongelic, please. I can't hear you. Mr. Pongelic, will you unmute and introduce yourself? I can't hear you.
Okay. Scott Pongelic. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Scott Pongelic in Escanaba, Michigan.
All right. Thank you. Maria Jackson, will you introduce yourself, please? You need to unmute Maria Jackson. Okay, so Maria Jackson, can you hear me? All right. Perhaps at some point she'll unmute and introduce herself. So we have done the part in introducing ourselves. We have the approval of the agenda before us. May I have a motion for approval?
Madam Chair, I have one statement to make. For those of us who are using laptops or computers, if you leave yourself muted, in order to unmute, all you have to do is press down on the space bar and speak. And then when you're done, release the space bar and you're back to mute. And with that said, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Scott has moved to approve the agenda and Dr. Gleiber has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Motion carried. We have the minutes of the appeal board from January 6th. That was also a virtual meeting. May I have a motion for approval of that?
I move to approve them.
Okay, Dr. Gleiber has moved to approve, and Commissioner Scott,
I will second Dr. Gleiber.
thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay, and opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much for the minutes. They were well done this time. Really appreciate them. All right, so we've done the introductions, and so the way this rolls through is there's the owner installer presentation, then the Berrien County Board of Health presentation, then questions from the board members and the appeal board discussion. There's a possibility of a visit to the site. We may or may not need that, and then an appeals board decision. So I am going to mute myself, and I look forward to hearing the owner installer presentation.
Thanks, Peg. As I stated, I'm representing Mr. Hemingway in the not the purse, but the install of the possible septic system for the property. The property is being split off. There's an existing house that was all one contiguous property. The property that Mr. Hemingway is proposing to buy is a little over 2 acres. As I said, it's being split off from the existing house up front. There's a private road that has access to the property, so it's not like it's landlocked or anything like that. It's a vacant piece of ground as it lays right now. There's no structures. When I say structures, there's an old woodshed out back that's going to be, demolished for his proposed house. Everything goes through here. We're proposing to build a Waterloo type septic system, a cedar shed unit, model 16 to be exact. It's a cedar shed unit, so it sticks a little bit above the ground. We've installed these before, as everybody knows on the board. Where the location, there's been some due diligence work done on the property. Some test holes have been dug, and no quality soils have been found. It's primarily clay, no substantial sand to install a conventional septic system on the site. We were out there quite a few times, Tom and I. Nick had joined us a couple times, and so had Laird. We found what we perceive to be an excellent location for the Waterloo system on the southeast corner of the proposed lot. It's naturally drained. It's kind of a little bit higher than the rest of the lot. Natural drainage around the area so they don't have no ponding of water, anything like that in that location. With that proposed area for this Waterloo also gives us a substantial area for a conventional sand mound, 4 foot tall sand mound, Allegan mound to be installed as a replacement septic in case the Waterloo would ever fail. There's ample room, as you can see on the print that I submitted, a site plan, I should say, is submitted, that we can achieve all the isolation distances from the creek. There's water that flows in the creek that meanders from the east to west. We can maintain that 50-foot minimum isolation distance, plus the 10-foot isolation distance off the property line. And Tom still has room to build a proposed new house on the more of the northwest corner of the property, but just south of that existing ravine that goes through the property. There's no city water, municipal water on location, so no well has been dug or sanks yet. Obviously, per code, Nick can tell me if I'm wrong or not here, but obviously we got to have a septic system first. That's per code to put a house in. We don't necessarily need a well, so the well's second. Obviously, this is more, to get a septic system approved is more important at this point in time to get the property approved, and whatnot. Tom, do you have anything you want to add to what I stated?
Hello, everybody. No, I mean, I think you've pretty much got it. We were out there probably 4 or 5 times, trying to find the right location for both the septic areas, the mound system and the Waterloo. Laird and Nick both came out and were really helpful and came up with, some good solutions that, I think will work well. And I did have McCarty well come out, just, I don't know if this matters, but, he felt confident about getting a well back there. Even if we had to do on the private road easement, he could burrow underneath. So, I mean, I'm fine with the well, but nope, I'm excited to build my full-time home there. So I want to get going.
All right. Any other comments? Dan, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Peg. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the proposal here. Like I said, we felt confident that where we're proposing to put the Waterloo septic system is one of the higher points on the property. It's relatively flat, but there are a few draws and swales that go through the property, but we can navigate them, so to speak. We pinned it all out to ensure that it would fit, to maintain our certain isolation distances and our correct slopes. 701 slopes is what's required, obviously, from the health department on a new septic system. We pinned everything out, and it did fit on site. And like I said, it also gave us enough ample room to put a conventional mound system in as a reserve area as well on north of the Waterloo system. So that wraps up my presentation.
All right. If there are no more additions to the owner installer presentation, we move to the Berrien County Health Department presentation.
Larry, you wanna go?
Okay, yes, so apparently, like they indicated, that we've been out there several times here, and a shed type Waterloo system has been proposed here for some behind the existing garage there to
Laird, would you come closer to the microphone, please?
All right.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
All right. Okay, yes, we've been out there several times and have decided the shed type Waterloo system would be the way to go out there for a septic system behind the existing garage. So, and as stated before, a conventional mound system can be installed as a replacement in case the existing Waterloo system does not function or fails. And so at this point in time, I don't believe the health department has any objection to having them go ahead and approve that type of situation. So at this point in time, I think we're on board with the proposal that Mr. Versaw and Mr. Hemingway have proposed.
I also want to add that during our initial site visits, the soils that were discovered were more of clay nature with a fairly high water table. And that was the reason why the property was denied. We could not locate proper acceptable soils according to our code. And that's why we're all here today as far as the meeting. Tom and Dan reached out to our office to collaborate as far as finding a good solution, and so we all worked together in locating what the proposals are as far as the mound and the Waterloo system. And like Dan said, I think we've all kind of gotten to the best location for it, leaving enough room for a house and a reserve area for the system, and plenty of room for the well still. We fully support this system on our end of it. But just understanding the fact that we had to deny the property initially due to the soil conditions and the high water table.
All right. So now is the time for questions from the board members. Do you have any questions? Dr. Gleiber?
Yeah, I have a question. How many of the large mature trees will be coming out? And does that have any impact on the drainage, or is the clay layer so thick anyway that it's not going to matter?
So I think I can answer part of that question. The area that we picked for the water loop, there won't be hardly any, maybe one or two. I would say not the large trees, but medium size. And there's actually a dead tree that has snapped, and it's precariously still standing up against another tree. So that would probably be removed, or it has to be removed, which is going to be a good thing. As far as a reserve area, if it ever was to ever be used, then a lot of large trees would have to be clear cut and removed. And there is a little bit of a sandy layer past the topsoil before we hit the clay, but that's the water table is in that sandy layer. I think one of the backhoe cuts that we did, there was some sand initially, but I that shed clears up that water. The water loop system cleans up that sewage water pretty good in that foam media. We've been watching these for probably the past, I'm going to say close to 10 years, Dan. And
11 years to be exact. August of 2010 was the first one installed.
Yeah. And we've been kind of keeping track of those, and we have not noticed any kind of side leakage out of the whether it's the unit itself or the entire system, the sand base that exists underneath that shed. There's actually Dan, you can describe probably the system better than I can, but there's a stone layer underneath that media, that shed, and then it goes into a sand layer that spreads out over the rest of the area. So we have not experienced any problems with that type of design.
And then how close will it be to that dip that kind of cuts from the east to the west and then eventually drains toward the ravine? Will it have to be built up more on the west side of the mound because of that?
There are slopes on the west side, there's a draw that kind of goes through there from the southeast to the northwest, as you're describing there.
Right.
The way our slopes are going to intended, and as we designed them, will be out of the bottom of that soil with the toe of our slope. We're still going to be, our slopes, we're going to be 4 feet out of the ground, so we're going to have almost 28 feet of slope. We have a 7-on-1 slope, and as Nick described, we have a sand layer of 2 feet above existing grade. It'll be a 2NS sand. It's like a wash sand. We'll have 1 foot of stone above that, and then the water loop system will sit upon that, and it will cap everything off with topsoil. So our toe of our slopes are going to be towed in relatively close to them draws or swales, but they will not inhibit a natural flow of the water in any way, shape, or form.
So they're just what, north of that?
That would be correct. That'd be
Okay.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, it's John DeWayne.
Welcome, Judge. We're glad to have you here.
I'm participating from the city of St. Joseph.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scott, do you have any questions or comments?
I've got a couple. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. On the drawing, it shows from the back of the reserve area, 50 foot to the water's edge, but then it shows the edge of the ravine. What is the distance from the reserve area to the edge of the ravine? Do we know what that is? Dan?
I believe we were right around 25 feet, between 20 and 25 feet. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. We were within that distance.
All right.
So for our code, and I think you're right, Dan, I think it might be at least 25 feet. because from what I remember, we made sure that we not only met the 50 feet away from the body of water, the creek, but also our county code requires that we stay at least 15 feet from an edge of a ravine or a bluff. And so we took that into consideration when we were stretching the tape out past the 50 feet away from the water's edge. So I'm pretty sure, feel very confident that we're more than the 15 feet away. And I think we're closer to the 25, if not maybe a little bit more.
Correct. Thank you for that. My next question, you're 50 feet from the water when you measured it, correct?
Correct.
What is the 100-year floodplain in that area? And how far does that water flood over the existing creek from where you measured it? Now, do we have data on that? Because at that point in time, if the water rose due to tons and tons and tons of snow or flooding or whatever, lots of rain, that's going to change your 50 feet from the edge of the water.
The ravine from top of ground to where the top of water is at least 18 feet, what I could, as far as elevation change there, Ezra. So if the water does come up in a certain situation, if that ravine would ever flood, I think we're all in we're in deep trouble, let's put it that way. That ravine is quite deep and quite steep on the edges. The slopes are maybe 1-on-1 at best, 2-on-1, I would say, maybe in a couple spots. So it would take a large deluge, maybe a glacier melting to, as it happened in India, to really have a catastrophic failure. I don't ever perceive that ravine ever filling up to the top and overflowing to compromise the reserve area in any way, shape, or form.
No, I'm not talking about that, Dan. I understand that. But what I'm saying is if you measured now and the ravine, the creek at the bottom of the ravine is at a static level, whatever that is. And you're required to keep that 50 feet, correct, from a static water line from that bottom of the creek. Well, you wouldn't be if we got 6 inches of rain or whatever that's going to come down there. It's going to rise that creek to less than 50 feet away. So that's what I was wondering. How does that work with our requirements that we need to be 50 foot away from a water source? Because right now you are, there's other times you may not be. And I know this is a reserve area. Maybe I'm getting too much down into the weeds on this, but I just want to make sure that that's all taken into consideration.
There is a little bit of room to play with the reserve area. We can shift it to the south a little bit and still maintain our 50-foot isolations. We could grow that, to 55, 60 feet and still shift that reserve area to the south and still keep the reserve area. There's a natural swale that goes between the proposed Waterloo area and the reserve. We could shift it to the south to gain that distance. So if the water would come up, say the water would come up and we would maybe at 45 feet at some given time, if that ravine would ever flood, we can maintain that without no problem there, Ezra. If it was a requirement to make sure that as it is right now, if we had to maintain a 60-foot isolation distance, I don't see that being an issue, that we could achieve that.
All right.
Hey,
I figured
Ezra,
I thought I would ask.
it's Tom Hemingway. Can you hear me? This is Tom Hemingway. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
Also I had, I don't know if you guys know Dean Ray. He kind of works, with DEQ and mostly on the dunes and wetlands. And I actually hired him to come out and look at that too, about the historic high wet water mark on that. And he assured me that, our setbacks were fine. And I was worried about actually building the house and where to build the house. But I showed him what was staked out for that Nick and Laird and Dan staked out multiple times. And then but he checked it out, and he was confident that, from historic high wet watermarks, we were fine, because I was worried about my house, where to build it to. So if that helps.
I have a question. Commissioner Scott, did that cover your questions, or are there additional questions that you have?
You did a fine
additional
job, Madam
questions?
Chair. Just a fine job.
Okay. So anyway, okay. So I'm wondering, just hearing the questions that were raised, whether you'd be comfortable to take it back 50 feet from the top of the ravine, would you, for the reserve mound system, would that be acceptable?
If we move this entire reserve area back 50 feet from where it is right now, I think the south end of the reserve area would actually be in a natural occurring draw there, Peg.
Okay, so that won't work.
You know, we
Okay,
can shift a little bit. I think we can shift it at least probably 10 to 15 feet. I think we can shift it to the south, but to move it 50 feet, I don't think that's going to happen. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, or what's your thoughts?
No, I think I agree with you, Dan. I think if we keep the dimensions of the mound as long and skinny as we have them now, and that was to preserve as many of the trees and the natural topography as we could in the future. If we were to shift it 50 feet from the edge of the ravine, we would definitely interfere with that drainage pattern that already exists that would actually work to our advantage. If we can maintain that, but I think probably shifting it 10 or 15 feet back, I don't think that would be it would be an issue.
all right. Okay.
The other thing I would ask is, Scott, you and I've known Scott. I have to say this, that I've known Scott for quite a number of years because I used to live in that neighborhood. Scott, you kind of grown up in that area. Have you ever seen that ravine like overflow or flood or anything like that? That little creek that runs through there?
Actually, can you hear me?
Yep.
So when I was a kid and even as an adult, I could always walk across that creek any time of the year with like mud boots, and it was never over, I would say it would be never over 1.5 feet. Most of the time that creek is actually pretty dry. In the summer, it almost dries up. It's just in the spring and during when the snow melts off is when it gets deep. And I would say it's only 1.5 feet, 2 feet at the most. Even after a torrential rain.
All right, that's helpful. Judge Dwayne, do you have anything that you want to question or any questions that you have before I make a motion? You have none? Okay.
I have another question. I assume the driveway is coming straight north off of Canterbury Road. Where is the garage going to be?
There's an existing garage at the end of Canterbury, kind of ends right where the existing garage is. Might keep that, or I probably will keep that, honestly, for a while. And I don't have the design quite yet for the house, but there could be a garage on the west side of the house, because we're going to.
Aren't you pretty close already there to the west side, or not?
For which part?
For the house, isn't that pretty close to the west side already?
It's pretty close, but I mean, I think there's about 100. I think we've got 100 foot of width to build within. So
Okay.
there's plenty of room. It's just going to be about a 1,500 square foot home, 15 to 17 maybe.
Okay.
But probably with like a single garage maybe attached to the house.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers it. I mean, I'm guessing that garage closer to Mayfair, with winters and stuff, you're going to want a garage attached.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah.
And just so it's not getting over into the reserve area.
No, it's actually the plan is kind of the opposite way, to the far west.
Okay,
That's kind of why I had Dean Ray come out and look at the topography on the land, just to figure out where we could build, how big of a house I could build, with the huge setback, huge reserve it's really, it's taking up a lot of the land. But yeah, so it's not going to be in the reserve.
so now when you build the driveway back, won't that go across that swale there and fill that in? Will that block
Yeah.
some flow?
We're gonna have to go over that, but that swale, I think, is created because there's a drain pipe that goes underground. So the swale isn't really, I think, this is what I found out with Dean. The swale isn't about the water being removed. It's where the drain pipe was put in that services the development. So there's like a pipe underground. And I think that natural swale happened by when they excavated and put the pipe underground into the creek for the runoff from the septic. I mean, sorry, from
For the, okay.
Subdivision, sorry.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Did you have a comment? Excuse me. No? Excuse me, Dr. Gleiber, did you have anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay. All right. I'm ready to make a motion unless there's any other comment. Okay. My motion is approval of a Waterloo biofilter shed model 16. And that there's room for a conventional mound system as seen on the certified survey map. That there would be no grinder in the sink. And this is for a 3-bedroom household. So that's my motion.
Madam Chair, I'll support your motion with discussion.
Okay, I need a second for the motion.
I seconded it. I support your motion.
Oh, you support my, yeah, that's a motion, okay.
Do we
Sorry.
need to mention any alarms?
Pardon?
Do you need to mention any alarms?
Okay, right, an alarm on the system, okay. I'll take that friendly amendment. Is there anything else that needs to be amended? Any more discussion?
Yes, the one thing that I would like to discuss, I bring this up almost at every Sewage and Septic Appeals Board meeting, is I think there needs to be a caveat in there that this is for a single family residence and not a rental.
Respectfully, I don't think that's a township zoning issue. I don't think I can do that. Judge, do you have a comment?
It would seem to me that's a zoning issue. And how does it relate to the sewage ordinance?
The sewage ordinance does not differentiate between a home, if it's a single family dwelling that can be rented out, it's still a single family dwelling. So it does not, the code does not differentiate between any of that. If it's a multi-unit building, then if it's up to a duplex, the county code still applies. If it's more than a duplex, then we actually have to follow state criteria for designing a septic system. And the Board of Appeals would not even apply to something like that, because anything that does not meet the state criteria has to go to Eagle side for further review. So, for our purposes, a single family dwelling with a certain number of bedrooms can be occupied by a certain number of individuals. And again, that's going to be a building code issue if someone chooses to rent it to a above maximum capacity.
Nick?
All right, Commissioner Scott, are you okay with that?
Nick, the
Yes.
only reason I brought that up is you'll happen to remember a year or so ago, and Mr. Versailles also was building that specific system, and that was on US 12. That was just inside of Three Oaks Township. And we had made a caveat that that was supposed to be for a single family home, not a short-term rental. So that's why I brought that up. And we had done that before. If you go back in the minutes, I'm almost positive we did that. That was a stipulation we put on. So that's the only reason I had asked about this.
Okay. I'm going to strongly suggest that we don't include that. And I don't remember that in the minutes. But could I just ask you to drop that, Commissioner Scott, please?
Not a problem, Madam Chair. I just thought I'd bring it up for discussion. Thank you.
All right. So let me summarize the motion to make sure that I heard everything. So I'm moving a Waterloo biofilter shed, model 16. And that there's room left for the mound system as seen on this certified survey. No grinder in the sink. This is for a 3-bedroom home with an alarm system on the Waterloo system. Single family home. So I've made a motion. May I have approval?
Motion.
Okay, so Dr. Gleiber moves the motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So motion carried. I'm not, I want to go back, Commissioner Scott, and just take a look at the minutes to see that what happened on the non-rental, just to refresh my memory. So as part of the minutes, could you include that, Nick, so that we have that?
Yeah.
All right. The other housekeeping issue that I have is that Jim Brower would like to come back when we're back in person. He's been serving on the board, but is unable to participate given his hearing. So we will welcome him back when we are back in person. So congratulations on your Waterloo system, Mr. Hemingway. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brisa. This meeting is adjourned.
Oh, thank you.
I want
Thank
to
you.
thank everyone.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your help.
Yep.